Well, I think the biggest thing, that we always try to fall back on was who was our starter? Who was the guy that when we got started, the guy that we could trust in and believe in? Brock is a guy that's had a lot of tremendous success for the 49ers. He's gotten them to the NFC Championship game. He's a guy that's got some history with them, who's done some great things. I think everybody's got to remember that. Just remember who's the starter, who got them to where they are today.
At the general manager of Cal football, and obviously someone who has a lengthy NFL career as a player and a coach, we're glad to have Ron Rivera join us right now on the River Islands guest line. Hey, I was going to say, hey, coach, but now you're GM. Hey, GM, how you doing, Ron? What's going on?
I'll tell you what, I'd go ahead and stick with coach. It's something I'm still trying to get used to, but it's doing well. We're just trying to figure some things out and try to be a little bit more of a consistent football team.
Great to have you on, and obviously, the whole Bay Area right now, speaking of quarterbacks, is just knee-deep in what to do about a highly paid starter who goes down and a backup who comes in and starts winning a bunch of football games. Our group here was looking at your history as a player and recalling the 1986 Bears where, I don't know, how many QBs came in and out throughout the year?
4 different ones.
So what was that like for the locker room? Yeah, what was it like for the locker room when you're dealing with what feels like a moving target in terms of who your quarterback is?
Well, I think the biggest thing, that we always try to fall back on was who was our starter? Who was the guy that when we got started, the guy that we could trust in and believe in? I mean, that's the hard part is that, Brock is a guy that's had a lot of tremendous success for the 49ers. He's gotten them to the NFC Championship game. He's a guy that's got some history with them, who's done some great things. And I think everybody's got to remember that. I know it's been real interesting as far as they're concerned because I think when you look at what Mac Jones has done, I mean, he is 3-0, but again, he really hasn't had as much test under fire that Brock has had for the last few years. So I really do. I just think that the one thing everybody's just got to be careful of is just remember who's started, who got them to where they are today.
So as a coach, is that where you would default? There's the ride the hot hand camp, and then there's the you're the starter camp. As the head coach, which one do you default to?
Well, if you go with the starter, your clear-cut starter, and something happens, you can fall back to the backup. If the backup falters, and everybody's going to sit there and say, well, why'd you? He's the backup. There's a reason why he was the backup. You know what I'm saying? You really can't win unless they win. Whoever you start has to win. And whoever you have the most confidence in, that's who you go with. I mean, Coach Shanahan's the one who's got to make that decision. Thank goodness it's not me. I don't have any pressure, so I can talk about it all I want.
Well, I wonder, in the way that you answered that, to what level do NFL coaches and executives worry about what people think and what people are going to say out in the world?
Honestly, I really don't think they care. I really don't. I mean, they're going to do what they feel is best. That's what I would do in this situation. I would more than likely go back to Mac until I really truly felt, though, that Brock was 100%. You know what I'm saying? If Kyle had any inkling that Mac was going to continue to play the way he would have, I don't think he would have put Brock out there a couple of weeks ago. I really don't. I know part of the reason they played him, was they had him at home. It was grass, and as soon as, I saw that they were playing on Thursday night and that they were playing indoors, I knew there was no way they were going to play him. You just can't, because you don't want to risk losing him for the rest of the year. So taking that approach, I would say, I wouldn't play him until I knew he was 100%, or at least it was a true emergency.
And that might actually be when they go to New Jersey to play on that horrific surface in New York. So, Coach, how much of that plays into your head as a coach when you're making these choices about, road spot or weather or field surface?
Field surface is a big thing, especially with everything that's happened in New Jersey on that turf. I know that it's notorious. We used to play there every year, a couple times every year. It's just, you just don't want to have to bring back somebody with a leg injury, especially a foot injury, ankle injury, and put him on that kind of turf. You just don't.
And, Coach, these are not perfect comps. That's not what I mean by it. But I do want to ask you this question. You see what's happening in Baltimore and Cincinnati when they lose their quarterback,
right,
seemingly like they can't even function as a team. What does this say about someone you went up against many times? What does this say about Kyle Shanahan that this boat keeps floating, even though they've had all of these injuries, quarterback and beyond?
You know, and I said this, I did the Thursday wrap-up for Channel 2, and I said that really just showed you the depth and the ability of Kyle Shanahan as a play caller, as a coordinator, to be able to do the things that he's done and continue to do those things really shows just how well he prepares his team, how well his backups are prepared. It speaks very highly of the coaching staff, as far as I'm concerned, and I'll say the same thing for Robert Saleh. I mean, those guys are doing what they've done the last few weeks and have been pretty solid with their performances, but they've really had to do it with a smaller roster, and by that I mean not a full roster of their top guys.
Ron, what was your experience in preparing for a game when you were going to go against Kyle Shanahan?
I'll tell you what, it was longer nights. It really was. I think he's one of the really, truly good game planners in the league. You know, you've got to try and figure out how he wants to attack you, what he wants to do, how does he want to use certain players. I mean, if you came out, we're going into a game and said, man, you know, I really feel our weakness is off tackle, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see him run a lot of outside zone, trying to attack our edges, trying to get outside of us. You know, if they felt really strongly about, you know, we struggled against deep crossing routes, you know, that we'd just get a plethora of them. I mean, you have to anticipate what he's going to do. And then half the time he may not even do it, figuring that you might be, you know, trying to fix that part of your defense.
Mac Jones has come in and looked great in Kyle Shanahan's scheme, and Sam Darnold was there, didn't play a lot, but he went on to do bigger and better and greater things. How much of not only Mac Jones' success, but also Brock Purdy, how much of that should we assign to just being around Kyle Shanahan?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of it. I think because it's the style of offense. It seems to suit both those guys. You have a quarterback that's not being forced to run an RPO style of offense where he's got to not only decide whether he wants to hand the ball off or he wants to keep it and then he wants to throw it or does he want to run it. What Kyle basically has done is, look, he's going to call the plays and he's going to tell the guys, these are what your options are. He's going to limit the thinking the quarterback has to do. One of the things that he does, and I love that he does, is he runs the style of running plays that he runs has complementary play action. That makes it even tougher. If you really think about the things that they do and then the play action that comes off it, it is truly hard on a defense. Why? Because you're trying to stop the run, especially if they're having success, you know, and now all of a sudden you've got the same action, but it's play action. Your linebackers are getting sucked up. They turn to get their depth. And if they get too much depth, they dump it underneath. If they don't get enough depth, they throw it right over the top of their heads. This is a very good offense. It's very conducive to quarterbacks making good decisions. It's not overly complicated as far as certain things, but at the same time, if it's functioning and running the way it needs to be, it's very difficult to stop.
You coached Christian McCaffrey in Carolina, so I'm really interested to know why you think the 49ers haven't run the ball better. Shanahan calling plays, McCaffrey in the backfield, what's going on?
You know, I think part of it right now is just the cohesiveness of their offense. They've had a lot of transition, a lot of changeover. One of the things that I don't disagree with, some people say not having the tight end healthy, not having Kittle in their blocking is a big detriment to who they are as a football team. You know, he's a tight end that goes downfield, that does help block. And the best friend a running back has is a tight end that's willing to block and receivers that block downfield. You know, because, you know, 5-yard runs turn into 10-yard runs when guys are blocking safeties. They're picking them off. It creates more running lines for the running backs. I think that so just not having the cohesiveness of having all your guys healthy, that makes it tough. It really does. And I think, again, because certain situations and thinking that, oh, they can't throw the ball the way that they used to, with Mac Brown, you saw them loading the box up on Thursday night. So now all of a sudden, Mac, if he continues to have the success while he's playing, you're going to see people having to start playing a few more lighter boxes, and you might be able to start seeing the run game start to grow.
You talked about the continuity of having a quarterback, and I'm thinking about your years in Washington where you were going between Alex Smith and Kyle Allen and other quarterbacks. How tough is that, not only on you as a head coach, but on the entire team to have that lack of continuity at quarterback?
Well, one of the things that has to happen is you have to have rapport with your receivers. You got to, as a quarterback, you got to understand, what they, where they like the ball to be put. You got to understand, that, hey, this guy's going to have a good feel for whether or not, throw a back shoulder fade. I understand how this guy runs his post route. He likes to run a little bit thinner, not as much towards the post, but trying to keep it a little bit more higher. So I throw the ball a certain way as a quarterback, knowing who these receivers are. And that's one of the things that, you want. Like when I saw Brock play initially when he came back off the foot, he was a little bit high early in the game. And then as the game settled in, he started to bring it back down. And then you saw him start to complete the passes. So I think, again, whether the guy's healthy or not 100%, but also working with your guys and working with them continuously creates that type of rapport you need as a quarterback wide receiver combination.